Welcome back to the City of London Cemetery, and with this particular case and incident it's another two-night special. So with the traditional crematorium there, in case you want to find this grave, I'll walk you to it. You turn around with the crematorium behind you, and then you'll want to be turning right onto this road or avenue. And this is a fascinating one because it's a murder execution menage a trois, and the lady in question and the grave we're going to go and see in question is an interesting piece of history in its own right, because the lady has been buried on 3 separate occasions. Lastly, and hopefully this is her last resting place, in the grave we're going to go and see now. And that grave, her murdered husband was originally buried in it, and he was moved and buried elsewhere within this cemetery. So he's been buried on 2 separate occasions, which is quite rare. The lady we're going to go and see, particularly for anyone who's into historical crimes, her name is Edith Thompson, and she was executed for another man's crime. And the only real formality they kind of got her on was some things she said in love letters, and even that was disproven. But we'll discuss that more as we go into first her life, early life and such like, then married life, then the murder of her husband, and then further on. And it is a 2-night special because there's a lot involved in this one. So now you've walked down this avenue, you'll come to this very large tree with a little roundabout type area. I will give you the grave and square number in case you wish to visit and pay your respects yourself. When Edith is most often spoken about, it's usually with the tableau of hanged for adultery, which is not a hanging offence. You'll come to these big graves here, and you'll look at first the grave of a lady called Isabel Rawlinson. Then you'll want to walk down the side of that grave. In a relatively straight line. Bluebells and snowdrops are all out, so we shall tread carefully not to crush them. And this is where the in a relatively straight line comes in, because you'll move over a little bit, then walk down the side of this one. And the grave in question is this very clean, and it looks new. Parts of it are newer, but Edith Jessie Thompson, 25th of December 1893 to the 9th of January 1923, reunited with her mother and father since the 22nd of November 2018. And as I say, and as we will discuss further on as well, Edith has been buried on 3 separate occasions. Firstly, within the grounds of Holloway Prison. Then, when that was knocked down and rebuilding took place, she and other executed ladies were moved to Brookwood Cemetery. And then lastly, and we hope it's her last resting place and final resting place, she was moved here to the City of London Cemetery in 2018. And she is indeed reunited with her parents, who are in loving memory of Ethel Jessie Graydon, who passed away the 7th of January 1938, aged 65 years, and William Eustace Graydon, 1867 to 1941. Now, I'll just pause you while I get my notes out to give you a little itinerary and intro into what you can expect. But before I do that, I did promise I would give you the grave number, which is grave number 92743, square 197. Edith Jessie Thompson, 25th of December 1893 to the 9th of January 1923, and Frederick Edward Francis Bywaters, 27th of June 1902 to the 9th of January 1923, were a British couple executed for the murder of Edith Thompson's husband, Percy Thompson, and their case became a cause célèbre, and it was a national event that was in all the newspapers, and including a few newspapers internationally as well, particularly in France. So that's our introduction. We'll now go into Edith's early life, then married life, and work on to the murder through there. So join me for that now. Edith Thompson was born Edith Jessie Graydon on Christmas Day, the 25th December 1893, at number 97 York Road, Dalston, London. The first of 5 children to William Eustace Graydon, a clerk with the Imperial Tobacco Company, and his wife Ethel Jessie Graydon, maiden name of Lyles. And Ethel Jessie, her father, was a constable, a police constable, so Edith's grandfather was a police constable. In the spring or late summer of 1898, the Graydons and their 2 daughters moved to a new home, number 231 Shakespeare Crescent in East Ham, which you can see here. After leaving Kensington Avenue School in Manor Park in 1909, Edith joined a firm of clothing manufacturers, Louis London, near Aldgate Station in London. Then in 1911 she was employed at Carlton and Pryor Wholesalers and Milliners in Barbican and later in Aldersgate. Edith quickly established herself with a reputation as a stylish and intelligent woman, and was promoted by the company several times until she became their chief buyer and made regular trips to Paris on behalf of the company. Here you can see Edith with her younger sister Avis. In 1909, at the age of 15, Edith met Percy Thompson, who was 3 years her senior. After a 6-year engagement, they were married at St Barnabas Church in Manor Park on the 15th of January 1916. And here is the interior of the church in which they married. At first, the couple lived at Retreat Road in Westcliff-on-Sea, before buying a house at number 41 Kensington Gardens in the then fashionable London suburb of Ilford. And that was in July 1920. With both their careers flourishing, they lived a comfortable life. And here you see Edith and Percy Thompson. In 1920, the couple became acquainted with 18-year-old Frederick Bywaters, although Bywaters and Edith Thompson had met 9 years earlier, when Bywaters, then aged 9, had been a school friend of Edith's brothers, her younger brothers. Frederick Bywaters had enlisted in the Merchant Navy. The 26-year-old Edith was immediately attracted to Bywaters, who was handsome and impulsive, and whose stories of his travels around the world excited Edith's love of romantic adventure. To Edith, the youthful Bywaters represented her romantic ideal. By comparison, the 29-year-old Percy Thompson seemed staid and conventional. Percy, oblivious to the emerging romance and the attraction between his wife and Bywaters, welcomed the youth into their company. Shortly thereafter, the trio joined Edith's sister Avis, and they holidayed in Shanklin on the Isle of Wight. Upon their return, Percy invited Bywaters to lodge with them. While holidaying upon the Isle of Wight in June 1921, Edith and Bywaters began an affair. Initially, Percy was unaware of this, although he gradually noticed his wife was drifting away from him. Matters came to a head barely a month after the affair started. A trivial incident in the Thompsons' garden triggered a violent row during which Percy Thompson struck his wife and caused her to fall over some furniture. Bywaters intervened and Thompson ordered him out of the house. The Thompsons' sitting tenant and Mrs. Lester commented on Mrs. Thompson's bruises on one of her statements to the police. From September 1921 until September 1922, Bywaters was at sea, and during this time Edith wrote to him frequently. After his return, they met up again. Here is Edith Thompson and Frederick Bywaters. On Tuesday the 3rd of October 1922, the Thompsons attended a performance at the Citrian Theatre in Piccadilly Circus in London, together with Edith's uncle and aunt, Mr. and Mrs. J. Laxton. They left the theatre at 11 p.m. and all went to Piccadilly Circus station, where they separated. The Thompsons caught the 11:30 p.m. train to Ilford. As they walked along Belgrave Road between De Vere and Ensley Gardens, a man jumped out from behind some bushes near their home and attacked Percy. After a violent struggle, during which Edith Thompson was knocked to the ground, Percy was stabbed. Mortally wounded, he died before Edith could summon help. The attacker fled. Neighbours later reported hearing a woman, here assumed to be Edith, screaming hysterically and shouting, oh don't," several times. By the time the police arrived, Edith had not composed herself. At the police station the following day, she was distressed. She was unaware that Frederick Bywaters was already a suspect. He was arrested that evening and taken to Ilford police station. The police confronted her with Bywaters. One of the inspectors, an Inspector Frank Hall, untruthfully told Edith that Bywaters had already confessed. She then admitted to the police that she knew who the assailant was and provided police with the details of her association with Frederick Bywaters. The police investigated further and discovered a series of more than 60 love letters from Edith to Bywaters, and it was in those letters that they thought they'd got her. A, because she said that she tried to poison Percy with lysine poisoning, and that she'd also put ground glass in his food, and B, that she had said to Frederick Bywaters that he may have to do something desperate. The letters were the only tangible evidence linking Edith Thompson to the killer. In Stratford, the London Magistrates' Court, her defence argued that the letters did not connect Mrs. Thompson to the place or manner of the murder. Accordingly, they did not allow for consideration of common purpose, namely that if two people agree to achieve the death of a third, and one of these people acts on the expressed intentions of both are equally guilty. The presiding magistrate decided that the letters should be admitted and that the court at the Old Bailey would rule on it. Edith Thompson and Frederick Bywaters were each committed for trial and charged with murder. Just one day before Percy Thompson was buried, the murder weapon was discovered, and this is D.I. Hall holding the murder weapon at Seymour Gardens, where it was discovered in Ilford on the 9th of October 1922. Percy was initially buried in this grave, which now contains Edith's parents and Edith herself, of course, and he was buried on the 10th of October 1922. So I'll show you the documents relating to that now. And as I said in our little snippet video just now, Percy was originally buried in that grave, which was purchased by Edith for him to be buried in. And this is the City of London Cemetery burial registers and Percy's burial entry from that. And he is burial 350257, buried on the 10th of October 1922, Percy Thompson, of number 4 Kensington Gardens, Ilford, aged 32 years, and the body was released by A. Ambrose, coroner for Essex, and the body came from Ilford. On to the next page. And he is buried, of course, was buried in Square 197, in grave number 92743, which is a second-class private grave in consecrated ground. And due to what Edith had said in the letters to Frederick Bywaters, that she'd tried to poison Percy with lysine poisoning and put ground glass in his food, the powers that be decided that they'd exhume Percy to check for that. And this is a photo from 1922 showing that pretty much newly filled in grave with Percy in it. And they exhumed him on the 3rd of November 1922, and this is an extract from newspapers of the time. And his body didn't leave the cemetery. It was taken to the traditional crematorium chapel and examined inside there, and this is what you can see at the time. And this is Sir Bernard Spilsbury around the time of the autopsy of Percy Thompson, and this is little extracts from his notes. On Friday the 3rd of November 1922 at 11 AM I made a post-mortem examination of the exhumed body of Percy Thompson at the City of London Cemetery in Manor Park. Dr. D.J. Drought, Divisional Police Surgeon, was present at the examination. The coffin was of deal with brass fittings and was airtight. The stomach had been opened and was empty. Its wall was stained red with patches of green due to decomposition. There were no signs of poisoning and no scars were visible on the wall. The small and large intestines were normal and no scars were found in their walls. The contents appeared to be normal. So that disproved what Edith had said in the letters, and even Frederick Bywaters himself swore to his last breath that although she had said that in the letters to him, it was totally untrue, and it was either a fanciful imagining or possibly wishful thinking, and that she had done no such thing. And that's why Edith has become known to history as the woman who was hanged for adultery, which was not a hanging offence at the time. And this is Chief Superintendent Wensley Wright and Detective Inspector Hall of Scotland Yard leaving the cemetery on the 3rd of November 1922, after that process had occurred. And this is an interesting letter relating to the grave and the ownership of the grave. The City of London Cemetery and Crematorium, and the letter is dated the 1st of January 1923. And it is, Sir, I beg to return herewith the letters from Messrs. Markby, Stewart and Wadesome, and Mr. Richard H. Thompson. Also enclosed is a form of assignment in reference to the grave standing in the name of Edith Jessie Thompson, and to inform you that the grave cannot be transferred on the authority contained in the letter of Mr. R. H. Thompson. If, however, the owner, Edith Jessie Thompson, desired to convey the said grave to another person, she can do so by conforming to the conditions contained in the enclosed form of assignment, unless the High Court rules otherwise. And she was able to do that, and the grave was signed over to another member of her family, which is why her parents were buried in there. So from 1922 to the mid-1930s, when her mum died, that grave sat empty but reserved, because, and before we go on to night 2 and more grave information, is something a little bit nicer than all that. I thought I'd show you a picture of Percy Thompson in his uniform of the London Scottish Regiment, and this is in January 1916, because after Percy had been exhumed, his family decided that they didn't want him put back into a grave that had been purchased by Edith for him to go into. So join me again tomorrow for night 2 as we go into the interesting information and a slight surprise with it of Percy's second grave, and then we go into the case of Edith and Frederick Bywaters' imprisonment, the trial and the executions, and then when Edith was moved and buried on 3 separate occasions. So I hope you've all found night 1 interesting, and join me again tomorrow for night 2. Thanks for watching.